Friends of Oak Hills, this is Pastor Dale with our weekly video Touchpoint. Today is Thursday, April 24th, 2025. This article is part 4 of our series reviewing and unpacking the teaching of a book titled Every Believer Confident. This section is called Understanding Unbelievers. This is a multi-part series interacting with Mark Farnham's new book, Every Believer Confident, Apologetics for the Ordinary Christian. Farnham is the founder and director of the Apologetics for the Church and professor of apologetics at Lancaster Bible College and Capital Seminary. He states, quote, the purpose of this book is to help you to know, appreciate, firmly grasp, proclaim, and defend the Christian faith. My ultimate goal is to strengthen your faith so you can confidently and effectively persuade unbelievers to believe in Jesus Christ. Aiming to dig into this book together so that we would see our faith strengthen. I want to start by just answering the question. You might be wondering why I am using this space, this avenue, to present summaries of this book, Every Believer Confident. I have two primary reasons for this. Number one is pastoral. The second is actually kind of selfish. As a pastor, Jesus calls me to, quote, equip the saints for the work of ministry. Ephesians 4, verse 12. Every Christian needs to be equipped for evangelism. I find this book to be an excellent resource for equipping us to share our faith. The selfish reason, writing each week for Touchpoint, holds me accountable to keep working through the book. Writing also pushes me to think through the material on a deeper level. I pray that we all would benefit from the study and God would strengthen us for the task of sharing our faith. Now, Mark Farnham contends that one way to overcome the fear of sharing Christ with unbelievers is understanding the nature of unbelievers. That's what this chapter is about. He brings his readers to Romans chapter 1, which Farnham says, quote, provides a detailed description of God's view of the inner workings of unregenerate human hearts. So Paul writes in Romans chapter 1, verses 18 through 20, for the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men, who by their unrighteousness suppress the truth. For what can be known about God is plain to them, because God has shown it to them. For his invisible attributes, namely his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly perceived ever since the creation of the world and the things that have been made. So they are without excuse. Farnham draws out 5 truths from these verses and the rest of chapter 1 of Romans about unbelievers and their nature. So first, quote, every unbeliever already knows that God exists and knows some things about him, close quote. This is what Paul says when he says, quote, what can be known about God is plain to them in creation. So even the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness. Farnham summarizes, quote, all unbelievers we talk to, whether they admit it or not, know that God exists and that they are guilty before him. So second, unbelievers, quote, suppress the truth unrighteously. Such suppression happens in 1,000 ways, close quote. This is what Paul teaches in Romans 1:18. Farnham outlines some ways people suppress the truth. The use of other religions, constant distractions, the abuse of creation, and denial of evidence. He explains, quote, unbelievers misuse drugs, alcohol, food, sex, television, internet, sleep, music, and other substances, many of which are good things that can be enjoyed within the bounds of God's commandments to satisfy physically what is wrong with them spiritually, close quote. Unbelievers ultimately, quote, reject God because they do not want to be accountable to him. Third, the consequence of suppression is self-deception, irrationality, irrationality, and idolatry. Paul says in Romans 1:21, these unbelievers who are suppressing the truth and unrighteousness, they become futile in their thinking, and their foolish hearts are darkened. Farnham says that idolatry is the height of self-deception and irrationality. He explains that idolatry is seeking to find significance or security in anything apart from God. This is irrational because nothing can satisfy those needs like God. Fourth, unbelievers persist in the irrationality of idolatry because of three exchanges. Farnham draws these out from Romans chapter 1. If you know the chapter, these are going to be familiar, but this is framing it and understanding our unbelievers. First, unbelievers exchange the glory of God for fallen creation. This is Romans 1, verse 23. Unbelievers celebrate so many other things that are less glorious than God. Second, unbelievers exchange the truth for a lie. It's Romans 1:25. Farnham states, in the case of unbelief, the exchange of truth for a lie is rooted in rebellion. Unbelievers will accept anything other than the truth of the Christian God. Close quote. Third, unbelievers exchange the natural for the unnatural. It's from Romans 1:26. In other words, they reject God's designs, not only for human sexuality, but for every area of their ethical lives. Farnham says, quote, all unbelief results in some form of unnatural behavior. Unnatural behavior is a hallmark of someone who is severely suppressing the truth, close quote. And fifth, the consequence for these unbelieving exchanges is judgment. 3 times Paul uses this language, quote, God gave them up, close quote. Romans 1:24 and 26 and 28. Farnham explains this judgment is God handing over unbelievers to impurity and disgrace. So in conclusion, Farnham says, things are far worse for unbelievers than they ever imagine, perhaps even more than we imagine. Only by being convicted of the rebellion and idolatry will unbelievers be able to see the beauty and rationality of the gospel, close quote. May we, out of compassion for these unbelievers in their state that they're in, seek to uncover the irrationality of unbelief in order that unbelievers might be helped to come to see the beauty of Christ in the gospel. A few highlights to draw your attention to this week as April is coming to an end and May is approaching. Reminder, once again, our missionaries of the month for April have been Chase and Shaw Johnson. I continue to ask you to pray for them, pray for their fundraising efforts and their ministry in Cluj, Romania. Secondly, we have a congregational meeting this Sunday after the worship service. This congregational meeting is for officer election. Roy McClellan and Jeremiah Buck have been approved by the session to stand for election as deacons. And so we encourage our members to be present for that meeting, to be part of the election on Sunday. Next Wednesday, April 30th, we're having a church family collective. So starting at 5:30, we're going to be serving dinner. We're going to have a full taco bar available for you to enjoy a meal together with friends from church. And come from work, come from school, come from activities when you're able, and enjoy dinner with us. And then at 6:30, we're going to gather together for church family worship and prayer time. And then kids and youth are going to be dismissed downstairs for special activities for them. And upstairs, the adults, we're going to have a discussion about church planning. I've been teaching a Sunday school class on Sunday mornings about church planning. We're going to do a little tangent and have some more open discussion about it and Oak Hill's place and role with church planning. Would love for you to be with us on Wednesday evening. And then looking ahead to the summer, usually by this point we are talking about Joyplosion. Joyplosion is our annual kids program for for kids ages 4 years old up through 5th grade. It's like a vacation Bible school, but it's different. And we just have a blast, and our kids love Joyplosion. Well, this year we're going to be holding Joyplosion at the end of the summer. The dates are set July 29, 30, and 31st. So it'll be a normal Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday evening, but instead of doing it first thing right away in the beginning of June, at the beginning of the summer, we're going to wait till the end of summer just for scheduling purposes. This is going to work better for those who are leading and preparing for it. And we hope and pray that it'll work for your family and that your kids will be able to be a part of it. And we pray that there will be an opportunity to invite many others to join us and be a part of this. We want this to be an intentional outreach to families, their kids who might not have a church home. So I'd love for you to be a part of that. Mark your calendar, July 29th through 31st for Joyplosion this summer. Well, thank you for joining me today for our Touchpoint. We look forward to being with you soon. God bless.